Welcome to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. We are your source for lobbying, compliance, ethics, campaign finance, and election news from across the country. Hello, this is Elizabeth Bartz, President and CEO of State and Federal Communications. Let me transfer you to Joe May, who will introduce this week's podcast.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I have with me today Jean Cantrell. Jean, what are we talking about today?
Well, Joe, first of all, thank you for having me. And for the audience, I'm Jean Cantrell, and I'm beginning my 5th year as Senior Advisor at State and Federal Communications. And today we're going to cover the why of stakeholder engagement and also look ahead to what we're going to be doing in 2026.
Excellent. Okay, engaging with stakeholder groups at all levels of government has been central to state and federal communications outreach for more than 30 years. When you talk about the why of stakeholder engagement, what benefits rise to the top?
Well, Joe, you are giving me a question that I love to think about. And frankly, in the most basic terms, stakeholder engagement is simply about being in the room where it happens. And of course, we learned that from the Broadway hit musical Hamilton, where Lin-Manuel devoted an entire song to the topic.
Yeah.
Being in the room where it happens allows participants to contribute in a way that is thoughtful and is hopefully constructive for all parties. So once you find yourself in the room where it happens, stakeholder engagement can yield 3 important benefits. First, information exchange. Second, relationship building. And third, the establishment of trust. Ultimately, those of us in the private sector aim to be seen as trusted partners and not merely passing through as transactional visitors. This, of course, requires commitment, showing up, and a long-term investment in building and nurturing those very important relationships.
Yeah.
And perhaps just as important as those benefits, stakeholder groups are well known for a couple of things. 1, facilitating collaboration, and 2, providing professional development opportunities, which is another reason for the why. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Women in Government, an organization made up of elected female state legislative leaders, facilitates collaboration through superior educational programming. So when you're at a WIG conference, you'll experience the elected officials and the private sector attendees sharing data and operational insights. Through this collaboration, the policymakers can better appreciate the impact of their actions on policy solutions and what happens in the real world situation. And without question, professional development is an important attribute of many stakeholder groups. And when I think about it, there are 2 that come top of mind: the State Government Affairs Council as well as the Public Affairs Council. Their professional development offerings can be depended upon to deliver robust, high-level training that supports government relations professionals across every facet of the GR ecosystem. So in summary, there are 3 benefits, 3 that I like to key in on: information exchange, relationship building, and the establishment of trust. And then 2 additional attributes, which is collaboration and professional development.
Thank you for that, Jean. I do have to say that I have benefited greatly from many of the trainings with the Public Affairs Council, and I'm a graduate, as are you, of the Public Affairs Institute.
And yes, both you and I are graduates of the Public Affairs Institute, and I just wanted to note that our colleague Campbell Hayden is there now in her 2nd year at the Public Affairs Institute. So there are many graduates from our small merry band of people that we work with.
Looking back at state and federal communications stakeholder engagement in 2025, what were the highlights and what do you most anticipate for 2026?
Well, Joe, as you might suspect, narrowing down this past year to a few highlights is a very tall order, but I'll do my best and spotlight a couple that really stood out. So I just wanted to emphasize something before I talked about the highlights, and that is the importance of executive buy-in for stakeholder activities.
Yeah.
State and federal communications is fortunate to have strong leadership support from the corner office. And as a woman-owned business headquartered in the all-American city of Akron, Ohio, our stakeholder program extends far beyond the large national organizations such as the NCSL, U.S. Conference of Mayors, and the National Governors Association, just to name a few. State and federal communications also proudly supports local organizations, including the Greater Akron Chamber of Commerce, the Akron Roundtable, and the Akron Press Club, just to name a few. My state and federal colleagues from the Akron and Washington, D.C. offices are encouraged to participate in stakeholder events. And frankly, I consider this a generous and meaningful benefit, one that has not been made as readily available in some of the other places where I've had the privilege of working. So, Joe, I prolonged a bit, but let me answer the question on the table. To recap, this past year, I was active representing the company in more than 20 national organizations. I attended over 35 conferences and participated in what was likely 60 or more receptions and other networking social events. So, with all that action, two experiences stood out. The first was the NCSL leaders meeting that took place in Reykjavik, Iceland, where we had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to engage with state leaders while gaining insight into how the Icelandic government operates. And as a side benefit, we experienced the country's extraordinary natural beauty and visited many of its unique natural sites. While we were in Iceland, we saw double rainbows, geysers, volcanoes, lava fields, glaciers, waterfalls, and some folks even saw the northern lights. And we may have spent a team building afternoon doing an immersive exercise at the Sky Lagoon, with legislators and private sector alike participating. It was simply unforgettable. So the second standout to me was the NCSL Legislative Summit in Boston, where its 50th anniversary was being commemorated. This anniversary meeting marked a milestone for an organization I've been involved with for more than 35 years, and it brought together, among the more than 10,000 people in attendance, NCSL past presidents, many of whom I hadn't seen in a decade or more. So, as we move headfirst into 2026, it's exciting to think about marking the 250th anniversary of our nation alongside the many stakeholder groups that will be celebrating that anniversary. I'm especially looking forward to the NCSL leaders meeting in Lexington and Concord, the birthplace of the American Revolutionary War, where we as Americans move from debate to decisive action and, of course, changed the course of history. Few places could better capture what it means to be in the room where it happened. Standing there where that moment unfolded will feel like both a privilege and a reminder. And it reminds us that progress is made by those that are willing to show up, engage, and act. And frankly, I can't wait to see where that same spirit carries my state and federal communications colleagues and me in this new year of 2026.
Well, I'd say that is a great note to end our podcast. Jean, thank you so much for taking some time to visit with us today.
And thank you, Joe, for the opportunity to talk about my favorite subject, stakeholder engagement.
Thanks for listening to LobbyComply Pod from State and Federal Communications. For more news, visit LobbyComply.com. To learn more about how we can guide you along the road to compliance, visit stateandfed.com.